Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands on SAP Dev with me, DJ Q Macro. Here, another Friday, another live stream. How are you today? I'm glad you can join. Thanks for joining. Good morning to Brunswick in Braunschweig. You know what, Helmut? For some strange reason, well, not strange, just my brain is not very good. I sort of had an inkling you were in Braunschweig. And then when you said the other day, oh, good morning from Brunswick, I thought, oh, maybe he's moved. But of course, Brunswick is probably the Anglification, if that's a word, it is, of Braunschweig. So there we go. Happy time zone to Lars. Looking forward to more Solution Manager. Sorry, Lars, to disappoint. And good morning, Ronnie, again. Top of the morning to you. So Ronnie and I were chatting earlier this morning. We were in Craig Schmeichel's Twitch stream. He was streaming this morning. I think he's been doing it for the past week or so. Is that right, Ronnie? He streams a bit of Minecraft, which is great. It's a really nice sort of refreshing, relaxing thing to watch. So in fact, let me head over. Let me switch to my main scene anyway, right? And let me just head over to here, Twitch TV CC Mayhill. There we go. So there's Craig. There we go. Check out this Minecraft stream from 1 hour ago where Ronnie and DJ were chatting, for example. So there's Craig's Minecraft Twitch. Well, there's Craig's Twitch channel. So have a little bit of a subscribe to that if you fancy it. Nice and relaxing. Yes, something like that. The SAP Community that's the SAP Community Minecraft server, right? Okay, so Craig's doing a lot of digging and discovering. I'm not sure, but it's really good. Good to watch and chat. So hang out there. Also, by the way, this week's SAP Developer News. Oh, there's a thread about it in SAP Coffee Corner. Okay, thanks. So the Developer News is out. Yeah, I'm glad we got back to the regular sort of Friday news thing. Good morning, Fabrice, and welcome, and good morning to everybody, in fact, of course. Brunswick is the English name for Braunschweig, which was called Brunswick in medieval times. Excellent. See, I like this sort of information on the channel. It's always good to learn. By the way, Brunswick. So I'm just noticing here in the top right hand corner, we got the Developers Digest. The first episode was last month, so we should be looking out for a new Developers Digest coming out hopefully soon. I don't know when. I honestly don't know when, as in specifically. It's generally sort of on a monthly rolling basis, but we'll see. And Niels, good morning. Do that. What's it called? Live long and prosper. Live long and prosper. Okay, so. Yeah, I'm hoping this is going to be a little bit less hectic, this sort of third and final part. So where we got to last time was we started looking at the Service Manager, not the Solution Manager, the Service Manager API in the API hub, in the SAP API Business Hub. I'm going to say it the right way around, otherwise the naming folks will come down upon me. So we looked at that, and we looked specifically at making an API call, and we did actually right at the end. We made an API call to interact with the Service Manager, and we authenticated the API call. If we look at this working with the SAP Service Managers, that brings us to the help documentation, and we saw that there were two methods of obtaining access tokens: user access tokens and client access tokens. What we did was we created a user access token. We gave my user ID the role collection that related to the scope that we wanted. It was in fact quite a lot of scope. SAP Service Manager roles. We gave our user the sub-account service administrator role, which had all these scopes here. Okay, and as you can see, if you can stare at these for a second, obviously sub-account is the prefix here, but then you have the broker, the platform, the service instances, service bindings, service plan, and service offering. So interestingly enough, the service plans and the service offerings, which come from the brokers, we only have read anyway, right? The read scope, because we can't, as a client, as it were, we can't make changes to what the brokers are offering. The brokers are offering whatever they're offering, right? So that makes sense. Tim, good morning. Good morning, Tim in Chorlton, I think. What was the medieval name for Chorlton? We were just discussing medieval names for places. And Javier, good morning to Barcelona. Good morning, good morning. And Sam Welly, good morning, Sam Welly. So we were looking at that, we did that. The reason I'm sort of staring at these for a little bit is because I've got, in fact, I wrote down what I thought we should do. I don't normally do that, I just make it up, sort of. But I wrote down what I thought we should do. And one of the things was to have a look at the access token that was generated, because that should contain some scope information. And I want to see if it matches with the scope information here, right? So what I thought we'd start off doing, nice and gently, because we've got a couple of service brokers. In fact, let's have a look. We've got a couple of service brokers, BTP list service broker. And if you remember last week as well, if you saw it last week, by default, if we don't specify a sub-account explicitly as a parameter, as an option, to the BTP commands that need sub-accounts, it will take whatever the current target is. So my current target is sub-account F78E. And by the way, I've been speaking to the wonderful, lovely people behind the BTP CLI, and one of the things we discussed that they're looking at is making this a little bit more human-friendly. So we might have the name of the sub-account instead, or as well as the ID, because I find that having done that, for a while, having used this sub-account for a while, I know that F78E is, is the trial sub-account. BTP hire. There we go. There we go. F78E is the trial sub-account. We've also got a test sub-account. I did this last time, didn't I? It was a bit small. I needed to go a bit smaller so we could see the region AP21. We got one in AP21 test sub-account as well. Okay. So by the way, I'm hoping that we don't have like a whole bucket load of stuff to cover in this last episode. So I'm hoping for more questions, and if you're interested in any of these scripts or how I go about things and everything, let's dig into wherever we want to go. Okay. Anyway, so I was saying that last week, and so basically, if I say BTP list services broker, that is going to list the brokers that we have registered, that I have registered against the sub-account that I'm currently targeting, because I didn't specify that explicitly. In the sub-account I'm currently targeting, shown here by my little sort of tmux status, is F78E, which is trial. Good morning, Ian, and welcome in. Good morning. So we could more explicitly say, if we say here BGU trial, we can see that get the ID. That's the thing there. So if we could equivalently say sub-account the answer of BGU trial. That should say it's the same thing. We should get the same information as well. Yeah, ElephantSQL broker is the name. ElephantSQL broker -F78E is the name of the broker. Okay. And this is a broker, of course, at the sub-account level from the BTP services, from the Service Manager. Okay, so not a service broker at the Cloud Foundry level, not at the platform level, as it were. Similarly, we could just say test sub-account, and we also get a service broker listed, but this time we're saying show me any service brokers registered for this sub-account, which is the AP21 sub-account. And there we get, there's one there, but it's not the same as the other one because this is CD76, right? So BTP hire CD76 is that one there, right? So we've got two brokers registered, both for ElephantSQL. Amazingly enough, right? Amazingly enough, my ngrok tunnel that exposes, in fact, let me just open up a new Docker container ls, look at the running containers. I've got two running containers. One is this particular dev container that I'm running in right now, which is that first one, dev container, and the other is the actual ElephantSQL broker, right? And that's been running for 2 weeks since I restarted after for 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks since I started it for the first of this series of 3. Okay, cool. Definitely interested in all the scripts. Brilliant. Okay, so just give me a shout if you want to look at any of the scripts, and I'll try and find them and explain them. That's a challenge. So I've got the ElephantSQL broker there. That is being that's listening on port 8080. Okay, and that port 8080 is being tunneled out to the interwebs using the fantastic ngrok. Okay. And there's the ngrok endpoint. Okay, so that's still the same, and the endpoint there, you can see the ngrok endpoint is a URL 11d3, and that's what we've got. If we have a look here, there, look, the broker that we've registered to the AP21 subaccount, CD76 subaccount called test subaccount. The details of that is that the URL, where to talk to it, where to call, make these open service broker API calls to create and destroy service instances and bindings and all that sort of stuff, and look at the catalog. That's the root of the endpoint, which is that. I don't need that one. That is that, which is then the tunnel down to the Docker container, which is where the actual broker is running. Okay, so we've established that. So what was I doing? Oh yes, so we have a broker in each subaccount. Let's just pick a subaccount. It doesn't really matter. Where are we right now? We're actually targeting BTP. We're targeting, as you can see from right at the bottom here, we're targeting the F78E, which is basically the trial subaccount in EU10. It's quite an old one, right? Okay. So let's use that one. Have we created a service instance at the BTP level? At the subaccount level? We've created one at the Cloud Foundry level. Why don't we, instead of doing this, BTP create service instance, right? Instead of using create service instance, which will of course require a subaccount ID or default, which is going to be the targeted subaccount. We give it a name, we give it what plan name we want, we give it what offering name we want. Let's create one. Let's create one now. Okay, BTP, create service instance. Let's be explicit, right? Subaccount BGU trial, which will, if we didn't have this option, it would do it there anyway because it's that's my targeted trial. What we're going to call it? Service elephant. Let's call it E for elephant, right? The plan name, that's interesting that you've got plan name first. I always think in my brain, I was thinking, what service offering? So offering name is ElephantSQL. And why do we know it's offering name ElephantSQL? Because BTP list services offering ElephantSQL there at the bottom, right? So ElephantSQL, and also BTP list services plans there. Tiny Turtle, Simple Spider, and Crazy Cat. And if we sort of scrolled right, we'd see that those relate to the ElephantSQL service offering. So that's what we want. Plan name turtle. Do we need anything else? No. Let's try that. And by the way, let's have a look. I was messing about last week with things. So that was the latest open service broker API call that something, the service manager in this case, has made to the service broker that's running in the container. And this is the log of requests coming down the ngrok tunnel. Okay. So if we do that, create service instance, there we go. We get a put. Okay. Does anybody tell me why it's a put? It's quite interesting. It could be a post, but why is put more relevant here? Given the actual URL path that we can see, /v2/service instances /93e4 blah blah blah, right? And also look at the beautiful, proper, appropriate Well, is it proper appropriate? I mean, 201 is normally from a post, but I suppose if the resource didn't exist, then yeah, 201 is the right response. So anyway, so let's have a look. In fact, I've got instances. There we go. ElephantSQL instances. There we go. Look at that. 93E45. 93E45. There we go. So it's been created. Okay. Well, let's leave that running. And what I want to do now then is maybe sort of interact with that running service instance via the APIs, right? We looked at the APIs very briefly last week. There's the overview. The API reference gives us access to, to be able to sort of poke about with all these different things. So there's the service instances. I think what we did with the API last week was do a get of service instances, was it? Or service offerings? But anyway, what we'll do is we'll get to the stage where we can call an API to list that service, to list the service instance, right? Or to list all the service instances, which will just be this one, BTP list services instances, instance there. We should be able to list that in instance name called E, right? But then probably why don't we also get the details of it, so give it the service instance ID, and then also delete it, okay? But in order to do that, why don't we, I think it'd be quite cool to take the other approach that we saw in the documentation in here. Accessing the API says you can use a user access token, which we did, or a client access token, which is a little bit more involved, okay? And I guess that's probably not unexpected when you're comparing a sort of what effectively is a resource owner password grant type, right, versus a client credentials. Because the resource owner, right, there are already credentials associated with the resource owner, but from a client credentials OAuth to flow perspective, where are those credentials going to come from? The client is just a thing, right? It doesn't have any credentials. So you need to create you need to get those credentials from somewhere. Where is this somewhere? This somewhere is a binding to something that relates to the service you want to poke, right? So let's have a look at this. Technical access, technical access. The SAP Service Manager API can be accessed using OAuth2 access tokens issued for technical clients by providing the client credentials, which is the client ID and the client secret. Client credentials can be obtained by creating a Service Manager service instance and binding. So the flow is going to be, what we're going to do is we'll create an instance of the Service Manager. Okay. Then we'll create a binding from that instance or for that instance. Then we'll look in the binding for the details that we'll need to make the call to the OAuth2 endpoint, which will be in the details of that will be in the binding, to say, please give me a token, an access token. Okay. So the really interesting thing is, it doesn't say here yet what plan we need, because we know that we always need to specify a plan when we create an instance of a service. Let's have a look. SAP Service Manager, create a Service Manager instance with one of the service. Oh, here we go. Create a Service Manager, a service instance with one of the SAP Service Manager broker plans, and then create a binding object, right? Or it's called a service key in the Cloud Foundry environment. But why don't we use, create it at the sub-account level? We won't go descend down to the descend down. That's tautological, isn't it? We won't descend into the Cloud Foundry environment instance platform level. We'll just do it at the sub-account level with the Service Manager, right? So we'll create using Service Manager, we'll create a service instance, we'll create a service plan. Service Manager roles. Oh, there we go. Service Manager broker plans. That's the next sort of child thing there. Sub-account admin. Okay, well, what do we need? Plan with one of the plans. Which one? Doesn't matter. All right, let's pick one. Let's go for sub-account admin. Okay, so why don't we see what's also we need the technical name, don't we? The technical name for the for the Service Manager is Service Manager, but we could probably see that anyway, right? Oh, yes, Samuele! Excellent. Okay, yes. Thank you for sending that information in the chat. Exactly. So one of the beautiful things about HTTP, one of the many beautiful things about HTTP, is that it's an application level protocol. It's not a transport protocol. You know, things like SOAP, things like the original web services, even things like GraphQL abuse HTTP as an application protocol. If you look at it more closely, if you stare at it a little bit, it's a beautiful application level protocol. And put is one of the verbs, right? One of the methods. And Samuel is correctly pointing out that the put method is idempotent. Now that's from Latin, has the same power, okay? The same power or the same effect. So basically you have HTTP verbs, methods, that when you call them, it has an effect. When you call it, it has maybe a different effect, right? So for example, post, you might create resource 1, resource 2, resource 3, resource 4. These are all different effects. Get is idempotent. It has the same effect as in no effect, really, on the server side. Delete is idempotent as well. You delete it, it's still the same effect. It's gone, right? Put is also idempotent, okay? As in, if you say, create this with this information, or sorry, put this with this information, put this with this information, put this with this information, has the same effect, right? Excellent. So DJ stop talking and more action. So let's see, BTP list services offerings. We have somewhere, hopefully, Service Manager. Is it? Oh, there we go. Yeah, Service Manager. Service Manager. Okay, so BTP list service plan. Let's put it into a file for a second. Plans.txt. Horrible output. All those spaces. Let's just get rid of those and set no wrap. Service Manager. Oh, there's no. Yeah. Okay. One of the tricky things is. Let's do that. Let's go up here for a second and let's just add that offerings.txt. Let's just set no wrap again. No wrap, and just get rid of those trading spaces. Service Manager. There it is. There's Service Manager. Where is the? Let's make it really small for a second. I thought. Yeah, of course. It's my truncation that's not. Yeah, okay. Let me just do that again into offerings. There we go. I know it's really small. Let's make it a little bit bigger. There. So Service Manager has an ID of 5216. Okay, right there on the right hand side, 5216. I'll just read out the first 4 bytes. Now, if we do the same thing, right quit. Into plans.txt. There we go. Let's make it even. Oh, I tell you what we'll do. Which BT, rather than use the function, I'm going to use the actual raw thing, so that I can explain that in a minute if you want to. Set no wrap. There we go. So 5216. Yeah, there we go. 5216. 5216. There we go. grep 5216 out of plans.txt. Is this making sense? Yeah, there we go. So there, grep Service Manager out of the offerings. We can see that is that behind my head? I can't really tell. We can see that the 5216 is the ID of the Service Manager offering. And the Service Manager plans are listed against the ID, not against the Service Manager name. Again, I think they're working on that in terms of making it a little bit more friendly for us, right? I wonder. One second. But let me just finish this thought for a second. So we can see that for the ID 5216, which occurs there, 5216, behind my head, 5216, we have 4 plans: sub-account admin, sub-account audit, container, and service operator access. Does that make sense? I'm wondering, actually now, let's just go back to a more readable size. BTP list service, I don't know why I'm scrolling up, but just type it quicker. Format JSON. What do we get? Do we get maybe something we could actually, let's go into FX, directly into FX. There is a plan and metadata, supported platforms, ID, labels. I can't see a relationship either that we could get for this. Supported platforms, no. Okay. Oh well, anyway. So yeah, it's a little bit sort of, takes a little bit of time to work out what the plans are. But anyway, CF Marketplace, of course, is a lot more comfortable because it has this relationship between the plans and the offerings sort of, worked out already. That's why we can do CF Marketplace minus E and have a look at the plans for the given service offering. Anyway, what plan are we going to use? I can't remember. We're going to use Service Manager. There we go. We're going to use sub-account admin. Okay, sub-account admin is this one here with loads of scopes. So why don't we do that? So we created, let's create BTP create service instance. So we're going to give it a name, service manager, sub-account admin, following my naming convention for myself of the name of the offering plus the name of the plan. Offering name, service manager, plan name, sub-account admin. Okay, so let's see what happens. Go on. Okay, so now let's create a service binding, okay, for that service. So BTP create services binding. What do we need to do? Create service binding, give it a name, binding service manager. These are really long names now, aren't they? Sub-account admin binding. For the instance name, service manager, sub-account admin. Is that what we need? It should be all we need, right? Oh, hold on. Oh yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Admin. That's it. So we've now got a service binding. Okay. So let's just remind ourselves. Are you still with me? Is it just me that doesn't know what I'm doing? Do you know what I'm doing? Hopefully. So we need to create a service manager instance and binding, which we've done, and then we get the details of that to ask for a token. Okay. Clients. Yeah. Okay. So. I'm just thinking, I've got, retrieve auth access token. There we go. That's what we want. We want an example, right? So let's have a look. BTP list services bindings. Let's have a look at that. So we've got a binding. There's the binding. So if we say get services binding, how do you specify that? Name with the name. What's it called? Service. I really regret already having this long name. Manager, sub-account admin binding. The really interesting thing is that the default, quote-unquote, human-readable output is YAML, right? It's quite interesting. Oh, Ian says, so is the binding the same as a service key? Yes, it's just a different term. Service key, I think, is more of a Cloud Foundry thing, and binding, I think, is more of a generic thing. It might be the other way around, but yeah, binding, service key, in my mind, they're sort of interchangeable. Thanks, Samueli. Thanks for confirming. So yeah, so there we go. Well, let's have a look at that. But let's have a look at it in format JSON. Let's have a look in JSON format. Let's pass it into FX. There we go. So we've got, this is the binding. So let's examine what we've got in the binding. We've got last operation, don't know what that is. There's the binding, there's the context. And here are the credentials. So that is what we want for our request, okay? Because it says here, use the credentials. You need the client ID and the client secret, but you also need the URL, okay? By the way, this should say just URL, not UAA URL. I've highlighted this, and they're going to update the documentation hopefully soon. Hopefully this will also, come into the Open Documentation Initiative folder, so we can all update it together and fix things. So Ian says, I'm used to service keys for BTP ABAP instances. Yes, yeah. I mean, I think as long as we all grok the concept, then it matters less what we call them, right? I think the concepts are really, really important. So remember we had that thing, didn't we? BSP. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter. So let's just put the JSON into a file. Let's call this binding JSON, right? So we can say JQ keys binding.json. We say what keys, what JSON keys are in there at the top level. So we can say JQ, where is it? Credentials, keys binding.json. But we need to put that in quotes. Of course, that's the JQ part. So in the credentials property, the credentials property is an array. Okay, so let's pass that array into the keys function in JQ and say what are the keys of the contents of the credentials property. The keys are client ID, client secret, SM URL, and URL and XS app name. Okay, so it says, so a CAP multi-tenant app directly uses your service manager to service to create the HDI instances. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think so. I'm not an HDI HANA person, so I don't know, but I would suspect that it probably does. Because Service Manager is everywhere on BTP, and it is the global coordinator for stuff. Okay, so whether it's Service Manager in the background, because of course, from a client, from an HDI instance perspective, I think that's managed at the Cloud Foundry level, isn't it? But Cloud Foundry is a platform that is managed sort of from a service brokerage perspective, or facilitated by the Service Manager, right? So I think the answer to your question is yes, but I'm not sure. So let's go here now. I'm deliberately doing this sort of, manually rather than saying here's a script I wrote earlier, because then we can learn a bit more and I'm going to make loads of mistakes. So why don't we say we need the access token? No, we don't need the access token. So we need the URL, we need the client credential, the client ID, and the client secret. So let's open up another pane here, just bring that across there. That's all we need to do, isn't it? Right. So if we say VI, who was the last person to speak? Samuel. Oh, new script, Samuel. There we go. So we don't need any of that. Yeah, let's just be a little bit sort of proper. Let's do it in here, right? So echo hello, and also while we're doing no, let's not do that. Yeah, okay, so let's say curl, oh no, tell you what we'll do, we'll say local URL equals local URL and client ID and client secret. Let's try and write this script, in a posh formal way, right? We can say the URL is in the credentials dot client. Oh, no, URL, sorry, URL, right? URL. There we go. So what we're saying is, from binding.json. There we go. And then say echo URL. Let's just run that. In fact, let's say list Samuele, and then when we see it change, just clear the screen and run it. Samuele. Run. There we go. Oh, there. I've noticed an issue already. So does that make sense what I'm doing here? Let's just make that down a bit more. There we go, there. Okay, so we can see the whole script. There. We're just echoing the URL. We're grabbing the URL property from within the credentials property in the binding.json file that we got, right? When we created the binding for the service instance. What we also want is the client ID, but before we do that, we also need to say -r, we want the raw form. Let's just get rid of that for a second. Save that, and now we get, let me just undo that again. Get rid of that, save that. We get the URL, but we get it in as a JSON value, right? That's a string is a valid, a double quoted string is a valid JSON value, and JQ will always try to output valid JSON, but we can tell JQ to say, don't give me valid JSON, just give me the raw data, please. So we save that, run that, and we don't get the double quotes. That's what we want, right? So we can say here also client ID equals, same thing basically, let's just delete that and do that, right? Client, you can already see that we're sort of repeating ourselves here. We do a little function, but anyway, client ID, URL, and also client ID. Client ID unbound variable. What? Client ID, what? Oh, client, sorry, client ID. Client ID, what? Client secret, client ID equals that. What am I doing? Client ID, oh, client ID, I can't type. There we go, there's a client ID, right? Funnily enough, Ronnie and I were just talking about this error here, unbound variable, because I've got this very strict mode turned on, no unbound variables. If I were to remove that U in the set and run there, it would just not print out anything, but it wouldn't say, oh, by the way, you've got this variable that's not bound to anything, okay? Anyway, run that. So the client ID, does that make sense? I'm just rambling now. Client ID, there we go. So that's that. We also want the client secret. There. And that's it. So now we've got all the things. Let's kill that. We've got all the things. Now we need to make a curl call, don't we? An HTTP request curl. And let's do it on a separate line again. So what do we need to do? We need to, oh, yes, we need to, oh, that's interesting. This example here is not like the example from last week that we saw in the user access, where we saw here, it explicitly, that's annoying, isn't it? How do you see it go across there? Oh, where we said the content type of what we're sending is that, which we really should have, right? So let's just add that as well. So curl, minus header, because we need to be good internet citizens, right? Web citizens. Curl content type, no, what's it called? Application, application, let's just copy paste it. There, right? And we also need to say what we want is application JSON in return, right? What else do we need? Let's go back to here, retrieving a thing here. Oh yeah, okay, that's all we need. We need now to specify the data. So we say data grant type, is it grant underscore type? Yeah, grant type equals client credentials. Remember last week when we were following the user access, we needed to specify grant type as password. Where is it? User access, grant type. Oh, it's here, isn't it? Again, on this really long line. Grant type equals password, right? But we're not asking for an access token through the password grant type flow. We're asking for an access token via the client credentials OAuth flow, right? So we need that, but we also need to specify data. And remember last week, we really should make sure that if there's anything potentially that needs to be URL encoded, then let's URL encode it, because we're telling the server, we're sending you the data in URL encoded form, right? In fact, just a belt and braces, we might as well do that. That's probably not going to URL encode any of those characters in client credentials, but you know, let's just do it nicely. Client ID equals, right, something. And then also what we need is client secret. We'll deal with that in a second. And then finally, of course, we need the URL. See, I like putting the URL as the value of an option to curl. I mean, you know, you could just do the URL here, like blah, 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 blah. But I quite like, you know, having everything as an option. So URL is the URL, right? There's the URL. That's the URL we need to speak to. The URL was, let's say, echo URL exit. Let's just exit there for a second. Somewhere there. That's the. Oh no, we need. It's just that's the URL base, isn't it? Right. There's the authentication base, but we need to add on at the end. Where is it? Service Manager retrieving access token. There we go. /OAuth/token. So the path info that we need, basically the endpoint, the OAuth endpoint is /OAuth/token. So there we go. That was a good test, wasn't it? Samuele. URL is that. Okay. OAuth. In fact, let's put it there. URL base. URL. Oh yeah. URL /OAuth/token. There we go. That's where we need to send it. But the client ID is going to be. We also need to. Yeah. Let me show you the difference, right? If we say, what's it called? Client ID is client ID, client secret, right? However, in Bash and in probably most shells, you know, Unix, proper shells, Unix shells, you got to make sure you're using the right quotes, because in fact, and shellcheck is telling us here. Look, shellcheck is telling us at the bottom. Shellcheck 2016 expressions don't expand in single quotes. Use double quotes for that. In fact, SC 2016. There we go. There's a bit of information about shellcheck 2016 error or warning. Okay, shellcheck, the best thing since sliced bread. Absolutely amazing. I deleted I cleared the wrong tab. There we go. Are you still with me? I hope so. There we go. Please, somebody say something in the chat. I killed the studio, but we're still live, right? So I think it should be okay. So we need to put them there, like that. Okay. Get rid of those two lines as well. Now, shall we run that and see what happens? Samuele. Bad credentials. What's going on? Via Samuele. Credentials, echo. Bad credentials? What? Client ID, client secret. What's going on here? Client credentials. What am I doing wrong? Thanks, Niels. You're still here. What am I doing wrong? Client credentials. ABAP is fun. ABAP is fun. Thank you. Thank you, Lars. You probably got that as a stamp, haven't you? Binding. What am I doing wrong? Grant type client credentials, client ID, client secret. I know what I'm doing wrong. It's client underscore. Underscore there. CF. No, it wasn't CF login. Oh, is that your? I'm here somewhere. Let's CF login. We don't need to. We're not at the Cloud Foundry level at all. But really, all we need. I was just passing the client ID and the client secret in the wrong way, so it wasn't getting them. It was looking for the client ID and the client secret in the query parameters client underscore ID and client underscore secret. Okay, let's try that. Hopefully that's the thing. I could be talking nonsense. There we go. Okay, we got it. We've got a token. We've got an access token data. So let's save that into token.json. Now, one really cool thing, right? We've got this token fx keys token.json. Sorry, not fx keys, JQ keys. JQ. Too many JSON tools. We've got the access token, we've got the spires in, we've got the JTI, we've got the scope, and we've got the token type. Let's have a look at the scope. JQ scope token.json. In fact, what we should do really is Tell you what we'll do. IJQ token.json. Let's look at the scope, but then using JQ, because why not? Let's just split it by spaces, and then actually let's just that'll do actually. Yeah, there we go. So we've got the scopes in. These are the scopes that were given to us in the access token, and the token JSON that we get has the access token itself, which is this big long sort of thing. But as a separate property, we get a list of the scopes. UA resource, that's the default thing. So we get this service binding read. In fact, we could even sort those, couldn't we? There we go. Broker manage, broker read, platform manage, platform read, service binding manage, read, instance manage, read, and then offering and plan, read, read. That's exactly these things here, right? So that's cool. But even cooler, someone, don't apologize. No apology needed. We're all learning here together. So there's nothing anybody can say that is crazy, apart from me. Probably I say crazy things all the time. But so what we've just looked at here is the list of scopes that was given to us explicitly saying, here's your access token, and by the way, here is the list of scopes that the access token sort of, contains. However, we can do something even cooler or more interesting. So Helmut says, JW JOTs can get quite big if a user is assigned to a lot of scopes. Is there a solution to externalize it? Because JOT is sent with each request and will increase some. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, how big? Let's have a look. Access token length. Yeah, that's like 3K, isn't it? 3,000 bytes. There are quite a few scopes here. In fact, so I don't know the answer. That's more of a JOT thing. Maybe there's an initiative to sort of, compress JOTs. I don't know. But in fact, why don't we have a look? Because we've got this JOT thing here. JOT token.json. Oh, sorry, not token.json. We want JQ raw access token from the token file. That's what it looks like. But then we can pass that into, or we can say JOT, tell us about this access token. Okay, sort of decrypt it, and let's have a look at it. There we go. We can see all sorts of stuff here. So there's the payload, there's the header of the JOT token, the algorithm used, all that sort of stuff. And we get the payload, and the payload also lists, this is inside that long 3K thing, right? We get the list of authorities, which are effectively the scopes. We could even say, I think, I did have a look at the source code to this. It's a node module. I've installed it globally. And you can say output equals JSON, and then we can pass it into FX. It's a crazy signature, payload, authorities there. There it is as well. So we're now looking inside the JOT, so the access token itself, to see the scopes that it conveys, right? So let's use access token now, finally. Oh, 848, perfect. Finally, to, sorry, Helmut, in answer to your question, I don't know. I don't know if there is a solution to externalize it or to, you mean send it out of band? I'm not sure that is the right thing to do. I don't know. Maybe it might be. Maybe I'm misinterpreting your question, but it's a good question. If anybody else knows of any initiatives, stick it in the chat. So now, let's have a look at the API reference. Oh yeah, let's use that token now to list the service instances. Let's do that. So we can say here, what do we want to do? I had this thing called call API, didn't I? We used that last time, yeah? Service offerings. There's the access token. That's right, yeah. So there's the access token. The BSP region, it uses that. Yeah, there we go. The service manager. So we're now making a call to the service manager API endpoints. We specify the endpoints. Service offerings, that's a default one, or well, it's not default. It gives us an error, right? BSP region and endpoint. So BSP region, can we get that? BSP region, yep, okay. So call API, that's going to tell us to use specify an endpoint service. What do we want? We want service instances. And again, just remind ourselves, call API. This uses the token that we've just had a look at. in our token.json file, it uses the access token, right? So that's what it uses the thing we've just generated or requested. Service instances. There we go. Ooh. So let's pipe that into FX and have a look. Number of items. 2 items are, the first one is the Service Manager instance, and the second one is the Service Manager. What's that? What? 9.3. What? Have I got 2 Service Manager instances? Platform ID, Service Plan ID, Service Plan ID, name, Service Manager, admin. Oh, no, I was reading that wrong. I was thinking, I haven't created 2 Service Manager instances, but actually, the platform ID is Service Manager, right? It was the Service Manager that created this, but look, there's the name, right? Let's just do that, JQ items.name. Hold on, there we go, jq.items.name. What are they called? Items. Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry, there. We got E, and we got Service Manager Subaccount Admin. BTP list services instances. We got E and Service Manager Subaccount Admin. E, Service Manager Subaccount Admin. So we've got that 2 service instances listed through the API. Now, why don't we have a look at deleting? Why don't we delete? What should we delete? Oh, let's delete the Elephant service because we've still got it there, right? I'm just talking a bit faster because we're almost out of time again. I thought this would like be half an hour. So we've got this ElephantSQL service instance 93E4, right? There it is, 93E4. Let's try and delete it, shall we? Let's try and delete it. So in order to delete it, what do we need to do? We need to specify delete, and it requires subaccount service instance manage. Have we got that? jq.scope token. Yeah, subaccount service instance manage. There it is. I can spot it straight away. Subaccount service instance manage. So we've got the scope in our access token. In fact, let's just do that again. JWT output FX. There's our payload. There's our authorities. Service instance manage. There it is. There. That one. There. So we inside the access token, we've got the right authority, the right scope. Here, there's another example of the same concept with 2 different words from 2 different sort of contexts: authority and scope. Authority is a JOT term, and scope, I suppose, is an OAuth thing. Or wider. Same thing though. Okay, so what do we need to do? We need to delete it. Delete provisioned instance. Yeah, just send a delete, right? So call API. Now, of course, this call API is just going to do a get. So if we say, let's try and do it properly. Endpoint is 1. Method equals 2 or delete. Okay, method. Is it method? Method. Is that going to work? Let's have a look. Curl help. Is it method? I think so. Man curl. Oh, tell you what. No, don't curl. Man curl. Method. Method. Is it method? Minus X. Minus X. Where is it? Oh, the method. Oh, request. Method. Let's just use, I don't know what the long form of minus X is, so let's use minus X. Minus X. There. Okay. That's horrible, isn't it? But so what I'm saying is, by default. By default, if I don't specify a method as a second parameter to call this, it's going to use get. Right. Otherwise, I can specify it. If that works, that'd be amazing. So, call API, what is it again? Let's just do the first one again. Call API service, there we go, service instances. Get rid of that. Just make sure it works still. There we go. Okay, fine. In fact, what we want really is sort of verbose, don't we? So we can see the output. So we get that. We get all the verbose stuff and we get the output. Okay, fine, because hopefully the HTTP response from a delete, you know, should be like no content 204. I don't know. Call API. Service instances. Yeah, we want the JQ. Oh, yeah, we're going to do this. JQ. We need the ID of the instance to delete, don't we? Because the thing is, we need to give the service instance ID. So what is it? Let's go up here. There's the ID. There's the ID there. 93 thingy, right? So let's just copy that. Whoop, that's a bit long. Copy that. There. Call API, service instances, what is it? Oh, delete, yeah, delete service instances slash that. Ooh, got an extra thing there. Is this gonna work? Delete. If this works first time, I'll go to the top of our stairs. Service instances, let's put that in quotes because why not? Ooh, okay, we get a 200 okay. Arguably sort of okay to give a 200 okay. I would normally after a delete you get 204. But if we now list the service instances, let's go into FX because we can sort of see it in more slow detail. We only get 1. So it's gone. In fact, if we refresh this, it worked. I'm not sure that 200 is the appropriate response for a delete. I mean, we did get some content, didn't we? There, we got this. Where is it? Where's the content? I did see we got beep, beep, you know, an empty object. So, you know, content type, yeah, content type, application JSON, content length 736. Not sure. Anyway, let's dig into that another time. But there we go. So I hope that sort of helps a little bit in terms of just becoming a little bit more comfortable with, you know, how to use APIs to talk to BTP services. You know, there's no real mystery. You know, it's and just you can just imagine now you're comfortable or more comfortable with understanding how to request access tokens in different ways. Using those access tokens, what we haven't done is, you know, had to refresh that access token there. If we have a look at the FX, what's it called, token.data, we can see that you know, the expiry of the access token 1719. In fact, let's do that, right? Let's do IJQ. I love IJQ. Expires in divided by 60 because it's in seconds. Yeah, it's half an hour, right? So the access token will last half an hour. What would happen if we, you know, we went beyond half an hour? We have to refresh that, right? Go through the OAuth dance of saying, please give me a new access token. Here's my refresh token to validate that request. But you know, I think we've done that before in Hands SV Dev. Would it be worthwhile going through that a little bit more with more OAuth stuff? Maybe let me know in the chat or, you know, tweet me or something. But that's more or less it. Yeah, was there anything else we wanted to cover? Create interacts with instance via API, access token examination, technical access. That was it. That's all I had. Was that okay? What we're going to do next time, I've no idea. Let me know if you've got any ideas as to what we should, you know, anything related, what we should investigate. Will you be updating the comments with a link to the script? Yes, I will. When I do the chapters and, you know, put the chapter headings, we can fast forward to certain things. I'll put a link to the which script in particular. Oh, the call API script. I don't even think I've got that script access. Are you talking about the call API script, Ian? Let me know. About CAP seems confirmed. SAP CDS uses. Ah, right, perfect. Thanks for confirming, Samuel. Brilliant. And have a nice weekend too, Helmut. Have a great weekend, everybody. And yeah, I'll see you next week. I'll do a live stream. I hope you can join. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure we'll find something together. Okay, that is it. I'm going to go to end and see you soon.